At Springridge High, everything had a certain sheen, not just of polish, but of uniformity. The hallways were bright, the uniforms pressed, and the smiles perfectly practiced. Students moved like clockwork, falling into routines passed down like heirlooms. Blonde curls, varsity jackets, and a pep rally every Friday. Nothing unexpected, nothing disruptive, until Amina Cole stood at the edge of the gymnasium, quiet in a crowd of 23 cheerleading hopefuls. She didn't fidget, she didn't shift her weight. Her stillness was what made her so noticeable. That, and the fact that she was the only black girl in the room. She had moved to Springridge just 3 months ago, her family settling in after her father retired from the Navy. Some parents welcomed them with cautious smiles. Others did not. Amina had learned quickly. Here, you were either familiar or you were tolerated. The cheer team was sacred at Springridge. Not just a sport, but a symbol. The girls who made the squad were chosen not only for skill, but for how well they fit into the image the school wanted to project. And Amina, she didn't fit into that image. She fractured it. Ladies, Coach Thompson called out, clipboard in hand. I want to thank each of you for 3 days of hard work and heart. You've shown discipline and spirit, qualities we hold dear on this team. Now here are the names of those selected for this year's varsity cheer squad. A breath held the room still. The first name was called, then another and another. Each brought a chorus of delighted squeals and quick embraces. Amina watched, face unreadable. Her heart was steady, not because she wasn't nervous, but because she had trained herself to be. Her father used to say, calm isn't natural, it's earned. Then came the moment. Amina Cole. The name landed like a glass dropped in silence. A few girls turned toward her. One or two gave quick, surprised claps. Others looked away. And across the gym, near the open bleachers, 3 football players stood frozen in their kind of silence. Connor Blake, the quarterback, handsome, confident, untouchable. Ryan Ford, his enforcer, and Logan Price, always the echo. Connor's expression didn't shift. His arms remained crossed, but his jaw clenched almost imperceptibly. He leaned toward Ryan and whispered something too soft to hear. Amina didn't react. She didn't smile, didn't flinch. Instead, she gave Coach Thompson a small nod, picked up her gym bag, and turned toward the exit. But the boys were already there. Excuse me, she said softly. Connor shifted just enough to make her squeeze past him. So, you're on the team now, he asked. Yes, Amina replied, meeting his gaze directly. Ryan smirked. That's progressive. I earned it, she said simply. Connor's tone turned light, too light. It's just, Springridge fans. They have certain expectations about who leads the spirit. What expectations are those? Amina asked, her voice calm. Ryan gestured vaguely. The whole look, school colors, pride, the girls who represent that. Ah, she said, you mean girls who blend in? Logan gave a short, uneasy laugh. Amina adjusted her strap. This school is about excellence. I plan to reflect that, whether or not it fits your aesthetic. The boys said nothing, not right away, but as she walked past them, she could feel it, the resentment, the slow boil behind their silence. The air had shifted. They thought they knew what pride looked like. What did belonging look like? What they didn't know, and what would cost them, was what quiet resistance looked like. They didn't know what it meant to underestimate the daughter of a man who had trained in war zones, taught his child to read people before they spoke, and to hold her ground when the crowd began to whisper. Springridge was about to learn. The locker was ajar, just slightly enough for the lock to dangle open like an afterthought. Amina paused. Her books had been rearranged. Nothing missing, just disturbed. The kind of subtle message that said, We see you, you don't belong. She closed it quietly, eyes scanning the hallway. 3 lockers down, Connor leaned against the metal frame, chatting idly with a girl from his biology class. His laughter was careless, but his glance flicked, just once, toward her. He knew she noticed. That was the point. By the third period, the whispers had begun. Did you hear they picked her? Coach must have been under pressure. Diversity check mark. Some were murmured in private. Others were made loud enough to reach her ears, but soft enough to deny. It wasn't overt, not yet, just enough to make her question whether she was imagining things. She wasn't. After lunch, she sat quietly in the study hall room, going over a routine diagram in her notebook, when her phone buzzed. An Instagram notification. She clicked it, then stilled. It was a post from an account called @EaglePride2024, clearly fake. A screenshot of the cheer team roster with her name crudely circled in red. The caption read, "Springridge going woke, RIP, real Eagle spirit." The comments were worse. Guess it's not about skill anymore. She looks like she transferred from a different zip code. There goes the neighborhood. Amina's hand shook just for a moment. She took a screenshot, then blocked the account. She didn't cry, didn't report it, just recorded it silently, like her father had taught her. You don't react to bait. You gather evidence. Let them write their sentence. That afternoon at practice, the air was different, heavier. Coach Thompson gave warm encouragement, but even her tone seemed clipped. Careful. Amina was placed in the back row. Understandable, the coach said, until you learn the formations. Brittany Holmes, a junior with a perfectly rehearsed smile, stood directly before her, and she'd step back every few counts, just enough to disrupt the spacing. Oops, Brittany whispered again and again, still getting used to it. By the end of practice, Amina's foot had been stepped on twice, and her shoulder had taken a soft elbow to the ribs. All, of course, accidents. No one said anything. No one helped her adjust. Afterward, as she walked toward the parking lot, she saw the football team lingering on the edge of the field. Connor, Ryan, and Logan stood clustered near the bleachers, glancing her way and laughing. She felt the heat rise in her throat, but didn't give them the reaction they wanted. She reached for her phone instead. New message. Dad, how was the first day of practice, Warrior? She typed. Fine. Paused. Deleted. Typed again. Good. Learning formations. His reply came within seconds. Pick you up for dinner. Want to hear all about it? She hesitated, then typed, driving myself. See you at home. That evening, the house was warm with the smell of roasted garlic and lemon. Her father was at the kitchen table, reading reports, a pen twirling between his fingers. He looked up as she entered, still in uniform, still silent. You're quiet tonight, he said. Long practice. He set his pen down. And your teammates? She hesitated, then shrugged. Some are fine. There's always an adjustment period. Darius Cole studied his daughter like she was a battlefield, calm on the surface, but he'd seen enough storms to know where to look. I didn't train you to lie to me, especially not about your safety. Amina looked down. Without a word, she slid her phone across the table, penned to the Instagram post. Her father's face hardened as he read, not with rage, with calculation. This is just the start, he said softly. First, it's whispers. Then it's missteps in practice. Then he didn't finish. He didn't have to. So what do I do? You do what we practiced, he said. You document. You wait. You don't break. Not yet. And if it escalates, his gaze met hers unwavering. Then we adjust the rules. Quietly. Strategically. He pushed her phone back. They've made a mistake, he said. They picked a fight with a soldier's daughter. Saturday morning, 6 a.m. The town was asleep, But the basement lights of the Cole residence were already on. Downstairs, the concrete floor was padded with worn mats. A heavy bag swayed gently from a reinforced beam. Framed photographs, black and white, faded by time, showed a younger version of Darius Cole in combat gear, standing beside men whose faces bore the same calm sharpness he now passed on to his daughter. Amina stood in the center of the room in sweatpants and a fitted tee. No music, no distractions. Her hands were steady, but her stomach nodded, not with fear, but the weight of knowing that something had changed, that the line had been crossed. Her father circled her, slow and focused. "Forget what you've seen in movies," he began. "Real self-defense isn't choreography. It's ikothenomy. You don't fight to look brave. You fight to get out." He stopped behind her and tapped the base of her neck. Throat, solar plexus, instep. 3 targets. Hit hard, fast, and disappear. She nodded. They drilled until sweat dampened her collar, until her legs trembled slightly, until the burn in her shoulders reminded her, this isn't just about defending her place on a team. This was about ownership of space, of not shrinking to survive. Afterward, he handed her a water bottle and a worn notebook. "Phase 1, he said. Observation." She raised an eyebrow. "You want to hold power?" he asked. "You study the people trying to take it from you." That evening, while the football field roared with practice drills, Amina sat quietly in the upper bleachers, not watching the ball, but the boys. Connor Blake, the orchestrator, the brain, never raised his voice, never got his hands dirty, always let others act on his nod. Arrived at school at 7:45 a.m., parked in the same spot, 3rd row near the gym. Left school last, always surrounded. Ryan Ford, the muscle, impulsive, clumsy in strategy, but dangerous in proximity. Dropped off by his dad. Wore the same hoodie 3 days straight. Rumor said his family was behind on tuition. Logan Price, the shadow, laughed when Connor laughed. Paused when Ryan paused. Followed whichever friend was closest. No initiative, but always present. Amina scribbled notes in the margins of her chemistry textbook. Lunch period. Ryan always left early. Connor liked to sit in the corner booth near the vending machine. From there, he could see the whole cafeteria. Amina never got close, only watched, recorded with care. She used her phone camera's reverse lens behind her water bottle, zoomed in from across the quad, and time-stamped everything. She wasn't gathering dirt, she was gathering leverage. By Thursday, she had 3 full pages. That night over dinner, she slid the notebook across the table. Her father read in silence. Occasionally he nodded. "You see the patterns?" he asked. She did, and more than that, she saw the cracks. Connor's entire identity was football. His father had built the school's sports complex. Losing a scholarship wouldn't just cost him a future, it would humiliate his family name. Ryan's family was stretched thin. If he lost his spot, there'd be no college. He carried that fear on his shoulders, and it made him reckless. Logan didn't have power. He had proximity, and with the group cracking, he would be the first to fold. Her father leaned back in his chair, eyes thoughtful. "The key to any operation," he said, "is not force, it's timing. When your enemy feels untouchable, that's when they're most vulnerable." Amina looked down at her notes, then back at him. "So, do we strike now?" "No," he said. "We let them escalate." She blinked. "Because once they go too far," he said, voice steady, "they lose the ability to claim innocence. That's when we move. That's when the world listens." And so she waited. Friday morning, her locker was jammed shut. A note was scratched into the metal. "Go back to where you came from." No one saw, no one helped, no one spoke. She took a photo, uploaded it to a private folder. No panic, no tears, only the quiet sharpening of resolve. It was Homecoming Friday, the most celebrated day in Springridge High's calendar. Streamers and school colors lined the hallways. The gym smelled of fresh wax and excitement. Teachers smiled more than usual. Students moved like they were walking through a dream, not knowing a storm was quietly forming beneath the surface. Amina had been promoted to the second row in the routine. She'd learned the formations, sharpened her timing. Coach Thompson even gave her a nod of approval before dismissing the team for the afternoon prep break. She should have felt proud, but as she walked alone toward the rear gym entrance, past the outdoor bleachers slick from a passing rain, she felt it, that flicker of instinct. Her father had described it as the temperature drop before the ambush. She heard them before she saw them. "Hey, new girl," Connor's voice. She turned calmly and saw all three of them stepping out from behind the equipment shed. Connor, Ryan, and Logan. The air held a silence that wasn't natural. There were no students nearby, just the heavy gray sky and the soft squish of wet gravel beneath their sneakers. Ryan cracked his knuckles. "We've been thinking, maybe you're not cut out for this place." "What are you doing?" Amina's voice stayed even. Her bag hung loose from her shoulder. Logan positioned himself behind her. Connor stepped closer. "We're giving you one last chance to leave with dignity." Before she could answer, Ryan grabbed her left arm. Logan blocked her retreat. "What are you?" And then it happened. Quick, cruel, unhesitating. They shoved her backward. The edge of the puddle came too fast to catch. Her foot slipped, her knees hit first, then her shoulder, then her face, into muddy water, into gravel, into shame. The chill cut through her uniform, soaking her skin. Her cheer skirt ripped at the hem, her palms scraped raw. Laughter, that was the worst part. Ryan doubled over, slapping Connor's shoulder. "Man, that was perfect." Connor stepped back, hands raised like he'd done nothing. "Clumsy much?" Logan pulled out his phone. "No," Amina said, pushing up on trembling arms. "Don't you dare." But Logan had already clicked. A photo, a video, a caption, match epic fail with oops. She stood, slowly, dripping, uniform clinging to her legs, her dignity fraying at the seams. The doors behind her slammed open. "Are you okay?" Madison Clark's voice, high and panicked, as the other cheerleaders poured out, staring in disbelief. Amina turned. Her eyes met Madison's. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she whispered, "I'm fine." But she wasn't. She wasn't fine. She was cold, humiliated, and quietly on fire. That night, Springridge won the homecoming game 28-14. The crowd erupted in cheers. Confetti flew. Cameras flashed. Amina sat alone in her car in the parking lot, still in the backup uniform Coach had found for her. It was 2 sizes too big and hung on her like borrowed armor. Her phone vibrated. Messages. Some supportive. "You didn't deserve that. You're stronger than they are." Some cruel. "You're lucky they didn't do worse. Springridge doesn't need people like you." But the one message that mattered came from a single contact. "Dad, I'm downstairs, ready when you are." She climbed into his truck, silent. He glanced once, said nothing. When they got home, she went straight to the dining table, still damp, still covered in silent rage. And then she broke protocol. "I'm done waiting," she said. Her father looked up. "I'm not scared anymore. I'm not hiding. They want war?" Her voice didn't rise, but it pulsed with clarity. "Then we go to war." Darius Cole stared at his daughter, for the first time not as a soldier's chai, but as a strategist ready to lead. "You're sure?" he asked. Amina nodded. His voice dropped into something quiet and steel-cut. "Then we begin phase 2. Saturday morning came with no fanfare. The world outside was still, but in the Cole household, a quiet operation was already underway. At 7 a.m., By 6 a.m., Amina sat at the kitchen counter, a legal pad open in front of her. Her father paced nearby, coffee mug in hand. First target? He asked. She didn't hesitate. Connor. Darius nodded. The one in the tower always falls the loudest. They had no interest in physical retaliation. What they needed was something sharper, cleaner, a wound that couldn't be bandaged with a lie. Over the past week, Amina had watched Connor closely, not for vengeance, but for patterns. He kept his truck unlocked, always dropped his gym bag on the passenger seat, and, thanks to his privilege, he always believed no one would dare touch anything that belonged to him. Friday afternoon, while football practice roared across the field, Amina walked casually to the student lot. Her cheer bag swung by her side. A black hoodie covered her uniform. No one noticed her approach of the black Silverado. No one saw her slip a small prescription bottle, one she and her father had prepared with expired, untraceable pills, beneath the passenger seat, just visible enough to be discovered. No one heard the quiet click of the glove compartment as she tucked in a photocopy of an anonymous tip, the same tip she would email to the school's substance abuse hotline later that evening. By Monday morning, Springridge High was buzzing. Coach pulled Connor out mid-practice. The school resource officer was waiting. The search was quick. The fallout faster. Prescription medication, not in his name, loose pills, and a school policy of zero tolerance, no exceptions, not even for the quarterback. Connor's protests were loud, uncontrolled, full of rage. It's a setup. They're planting this. But no one cared. Within hours, his suspension was confirmed. Scholarship inquiries were placed on hold. And suddenly the golden boy of Springridge was just another cautionary tale. From across the quad, Amina watched it unfold. She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She simply closed her notebook and walked to class. That evening at dinner, her bayasa raised his glass of water in a mock toast. Phase 1, executed flawlessly, but Amina only stirred her food. I thought I'd feel something, she said quietly, but it just feels empty. Her father looked at her for a long time. Because justice, he said, isn't about how you feel when it happens. It's about what it prevents next. She nodded slowly. I guess now they'll finally understand. He leaned forward. They're just starting to. Message of the story. True power doesn't come from reacting with rage. It comes from responding with strategy, dignity, and patience. Bullies don't fear noise. They fear the truth documented in silence.